For our listeners out there who are thinking about pursuing a similar career in this field, is there any particular advice that you would give them? If I was to flip it, if they'd come to you and say, I want to do what you're doing, Gonzalo.
Yeah.
Can you give me some advice? What would you say to them?
My advice would be, see the field of educational research. It's blossoming because education is not going away, and education is changing. So technologies are changing, societies are changing. We need new ways of thinking about it. That's going to stay. But philosophy as a field is shrinking, just in terms of like jobs. Yeah. So it's risky to go into that field. I think it's important for someone to be aware of that and pursue it if you know that's you're so passionate about it that you're willing to take the risk of struggling as a career. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm doing this, but it's a very small market for that. But you can do really interesting work, philosophical work about education at the intersection of other fields that have a lot like healthier markets. Technology of education, people doing work with education and cognitive science, like understanding kind of what happens in the brain with different when we're learning something. Those are fields that have a lot more. Or even if you do something like teacher education or early childhood education, those are fields that are kind of growing as markets.
Okay, so I guess what you're saying is philosophy on its own, although it's very interesting, it's very difficult to get work in that area. But education is a blossoming area because it's not going away. And if you combine philosophy and education, then since education itself, the education component will help sort of assist in you being able to continue to, I guess, practice philosophy in that situation.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So I'm curious, just if we took the education stuff out, and here it's I'm showing my ignorance again. If you have a bachelor in philosophy, whatever type of philosophy, it's not so important here. What, other than being a professor or a lecturer at university, are there any jobs out there in just philosophy?
No.
Right.
So
okay.
to work as a philosopher means that you write and publish philosophy, or you teach. Now, people with philosophy degrees get all kinds of jobs. They're valuable degrees. For example, people argue as the best ABA. Sorry, a Bachelor of Philosophy is the best preparation for law school.
Oh.
The highest LSAT scores are philosophy majors. So the entrance exam for law schools in the US. It's a great degree to go into business because of you have a lot of training in kind of critical thinking and logic and all that. But all of those fields are not philosophy. Like studying philosophy might be good for that, but you're not working as a philosopher.
Right. So so it's a great tool to have as part of other careers, so to speak.
But to work as a philosopher, getting paid, it's pretty much. Maybe I don't know who gets paid to do philosophy, and it's not teaching in the university or publishing. Yeah. I mean, even publishing books. you have to only if you're very famous.
Exactly.
You can do that only for a living. You know.
Because I mean, put it this way, without knowing too much about it, but philosophy is something that I personally would love to study more. Because it's the little bit that, and my wife always tells me, man, you would love that area. And that's one of the reasons I was looking so forward to having this conversation with you, because it's an area which I know so little about, yet it sounds, the little that I've had exposure, the little exposure I've had to it, it's just fascinating. Like, it's just like, wow, I would like to delve more into it. But for many reasons, lack of time, laziness, whatever you want, I have not. So, but okay, that's interesting, because I was always curious. Yeah, with the Bachelor of Philosophy, what on earth could you do with it? But you've clarified that for me, which is great. Now, so I guess that is your advice. You don't think that you're going to go out and be earning the big bucks through philosophy, but it's a great tool that you can have. And education is an area that's always going to be around.
There are some fields, philosophy, art, music, or sports, for example, that many people are very passionate about these fields, but they all have the same quality, which is that very few, very, very few really make a living doing those things. And you got to be really exceptionally good and lucky.
Exactly.
At the same time.
Yes.
But it's not a bad idea to say, well, I love art. I know it's very hard to make a living as an artist.
Right.
But what are careers that have healthy markets? You can get a job. We can do something. Like you can implement kind of artistic ways of thinking into the job.
But that's interesting. So I there's the little that I read, there seems to be a realization the importance of creativity in work, whatever, in many occupations. So, of course, say in business, an MBA is considered very valuable, but I've been seeing a lot more emphasis where apparently a lot of consultancy firms and I guess your high-end, sort of high-achieving industries are also looking for people who have degrees in fine arts, and painting, and other and philosophy and things like that, where creativity is cultivated and nurtured, and that seems very, very essentially consistent with what you're saying. And I guess the value of that is not necessarily appreciated, since, like you said, you're not necessarily going to be earning a living through that subject matter, but that is something that will help you do something else much better in a greater capacity. You know.
And I think in general, this is beyond any field like philosophy or whatever. I think in general, it's a good thing for young people to think imaginatively about their careers. The straight path of, going to the university, picking a major, graduating with that degree, getting a job in that field, and progressing in your career that way, it's becoming less and less common. People's career just it's not a straight line. You go in all different kinds of directions, and many people end up making a life for themselves that it was not part of any already pre-made path. So in that, because that's a possibility, is I think it's good for people to think not just in terms of I like this field or like that field, but think, what are the kinds of things I like to do? I like to think critically. I like aesthetic things. I like things beautiful. I like to think visually. I like interacting with people or not. I like to keep to myself and follow set goals and just try to achieve whatever it is. And then once you're aware of that, like you know yourself, you know who you are, you can create a path. Maybe you're lucky that a particular career that is already set up in a way is a perfect match, and the labor market is healthy and you can get a job. But if it doesn't happen, people make their lives in all kinds of ways.